to be copper and keeping it in the historic?
Someday there's copper now. There's copper underneath it. But that's a skin coat of something that was painted green. I watched it down.
That isn't copper on the dome?
Underneath it is copper, leaky copper. But they just did a skin coat of something and painted it green.
Yeah, I think it's called.
So the real question is not what is the library roof made out of, but do we want to save $15,000 towards some library expense in the future? Yes or no?
The budget
The answer is
committee
yes.
concurs with that.
And do we want to raise that from taxation? No, we want to raise it from fund balance. All those in favor? 3-0. There you go. Sorry.
All right. Article 8. Shall we raise and appropriate $50,000 to be added to the ambulance capital reserve fund? $50,000 coming from fund balance, 0 from taxation.
The budget committee wished to cut that to $15,000 and add it into that total that we talked about, the 42.5 for taxation.
Yeah. And the reason again is that we're at that point where we're going to be buying cash or leasing, whichever, these vehicles. So we'll put some money down, lease it for a while, pay it off. That's what's going to happen.
With the 50,000, I believe there's 94,000 in there now.
The ambulance has about $100,000 in there now.
With the 50,000, I could replace the ambulance.
Right, but I mean, we could replace it and lease. We could put money down on it and lease it. Is what I'm trying to say. Is that instead of tying your money up in that account, if we purchase an ambulance next year, we could put the $100,000 in 2017. We could put the $100,000 down on it and lease it for 5 years. See what I'm saying?
Sure. However you want to do it.
Yeah.
The bottom line is we don't have,
Is that a fair statement? An adequate or realistic or agreed upon capital improvement plan?
Absolutely.
and that's something that should really be part of the capital improvement plan.
We're living beyond our means. Is what it boils down to right now.
Yeah. Okay. So it's proposed by the budget committee to reduce the amount from $15,000 to $15,000 and have that to come from taxation.
Correct.
Thoughts?
I'd rather see that one come from unassigned fund balance.
As would I. How about the number though? You good with 15?
As opposed to 50?
I'm good with 15.
15, I'm good with 15. I'm good with fund balance.
I'm good with 15.
You don't have to decide before 9 p.m.
No, I think I see where you guys are trying to go, and I think I would agree with them on that part of it.
That's too much.
So you want to,
Take it for fund balance, 15,000.
right, but you don't want to buy a new one, you want to lease a new one?
Well, when we get to that point,
Yeah, we got it.
yeah, we don't have that all planned
You're not
out.
doing it.
The long and the short of it is when we look at leasing, we can, number one, spread our costs out. Number two, we don't have to try to save the whole nut to buy something.
Right, but we're 7/8 of the nut there.
Right.
We with the 15,000, we could buy an economy model like.
Well, no, you misunderstood. You're not understanding what I'm saying. Is that say you want a $200,000 ambulance,
Which it won't be.
you have $100,000 right now, put $15,000 in there, that give you $85,000 short. You lease that $85,000 over 5 years, spread your payments over.
Right, or,
So you still get the same.
I wish this meeting was Thursday, I'd tell you what a new one costs, because it's going to be the absolute
And we
bottom.
don't know that figure yet, but if it's $150,000 or $200,000, you can manipulate those numbers and lease a vehicle for what you need.
All right.
You're now up to $495,000 coming out of the fund balance unless something further down the pipe drops. And in that regard, again, it goes back to what's realistic. What is our fund balance? So
Yeah, I understand the point.
You can't, it doesn't work too well.
Yeah, okay. Article 9, we're moving along. Shall the town of Alstead vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the police department capital reserve fund? $10,000 to come from unassigned fund balance.
we went to 5,000 taxation.
What would this, the intended use be?
Eventually buy the next cruiser.
Or probably,
Put money down and lease it.
And that's not true, because I think from what you told me, Joe, we've alternated at least by, with me, we
With
have.
entire hands in the present.
yeah.
And the voters have the authority to commit the town to a multi-year lease. The voters also have the authority to take money out of capital reserve to fund a year or more of that lease, which is what he was trying to get you to understand about the ambulance. So there is a way to get that ambulance at whatever it costs with the money that we have in the bank now, with the voters' approval.
Right, right. I just didn't know the school.
But what
we
it
buy
does is it ties our hands
one with the
4
money
or 5
we
years
have.
down the road.
And we don't have to pay for something for the next 5 years when we already have.
And of course, that, it's entirely possible to amend that from the floor.
Yep.
But the selectmen have already voted on it, what's going to appear on the.
And see, here's the other side of that coin. If you leave some money in that fund balance, and we do need one, you could take that money out of fund balance, just like we're proposing for the fire truck, and pay for that. If you run that fund balance down so low, you're not gonna have that money there to do that.
All right.
Yeah, understood.
Okay?
All right. You do great. Thank you, sir. All right, so the proposal is to drop police capital reserve from $10,000 to $5,000. Are you saying from taxation, or yes, this is, and the budget committee proposed this come from new taxation? Okay.
Okay, did the selectmen agree with 5,000 first?
Can I go for that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Now, where should it come from, gents?
Again, I like I like giving the voters a menu, but that's me.
So one, no, or, what?
What did you say?
I got one too, but.
I just changed the banana dog fish to the banana patch.
Oh.
That's what I said.
Taxation.
Yes, thank you.
Is that what you said too?
That's what I said.
Okay.
That's stated 5,000 for taxation.
Yes. You okay with that one for taxation?
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
No?
Yeah, fine. Fully on board.
All right. Shall the town raise and appropriate $160,000 to continue the paving of Walpole Valley Road and to pave the March Hill Road? $100,000 to come from unassigned fund balance, $60,000 to come from taxation.
And if I read your notes right, Carol, the budget committee said, oh, that's not enough money, it should be $250, which was the original ask.
Yeah.
And all of that should come from fund balance.
Correct.
I actually support that, that's where I started.
We went back and forth, and I actually was looking at my email there to try to make sure that was the right number, that I didn't screw it up, because I see one other place where I know I made a mistake. The feeling, we had dropped it to 210, and the feeling was that this year, because asphalt should be inexpensive, would be the year to do more. So bump it back up and do it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And on top of that, if you're at 210 and it's gonna cost 240, you're gonna, do the last 500 feet not paid?
Well, that's pretty
And
much
then
what we
move
had.
back in, well, I mean, then you have to have moving charges. It's gonna cost you more in that moving charges than it is to pave it.
That's where we're well.
And I did agree to rewrite the language on that warrant article so that it wasn't restricted to those two
Right.
streets, so that if paving drops as much as salt has, then we could hop from there to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And spend the full
And
amount.
we need to, because I've been working with Ackworth on
Where do you think we should go?
Oh, I know where it should go.
I can hear you over there.
All right, so then the proposal is to increase this from $160,000 to $250,000, and to have 100% of it come from unassigned fund balance.
No.
Yes,
Yes.
you don't get to vote.
Why are
Not
you-
yet.
Why are you
That's what
opposed
the
to
budget
this?
committee
But
recommends,
it's
right,
like a
Carol?
crazy amount of.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a crazy amount of money.
To spend on paving in 1 year. I understand the cost of asphalt, come on. It's still money.
It is a lot of money. It's money that we've already taken.
I say we stick with 160.
We're proposing taking less money out of fund balance than you guys are.
Yeah.
Well, You guys.
Don't pin that on them, that's all my work.
Joel, it's all Joel.
So,
And if I can, just one more comment, I mean, they be working with Akron on their roads, trying to help and come up with a plan. And well, no, this is what happens when we keep shorted, because the selectmen sat there and said, well, we're saving these people all this money. Well, now they're spending millions of dollars to get caught up. But what happens deterioration happens slowly. So, say this year you're gonna spend $160,000, you wait one more year, and you're gonna do less paving on the same road because the road deteriorates.
but on our entire roads, you don't think we're in better shape than we were?
We need to keep them in better shape, that's.
And we've been spending less than this every year. We've been spending 130, correct?
We should be spending about $170,000, so for the past 5 years, we've actually shorted
Okay, let's go
ourselves.
170 then.
That's what I was gonna ask, you got a counter proposal?
170.
170, so we're between 160 and 250, $90,000.
Can I just make one comment, Doc? You're gonna get more bang for your buck. Oil prices are unprecedented,
Still
and
went back.
the asphalt should be coming down accordingly. I mean, I would
It's
get,
not your buck, it's the taxpayer's buck.
Some of them are mine.
Most of them are yours.
So that,
I know. I should,
one thing I like about
You can vote twice.
yeah,
But what I mean, we're contracting out, which means it actually, it will get done.
Right, oh yeah, and it's a better job done that way.
So I guess I would throw out, in looking for some compromise, I'll say 200,000. Could you live with that? And, well, you know, we're talking about the difference between 160 or 130 on your side and 250.
200, and some of it come from taxation.
Okay.
I'm sure support 200.
Can I make a suggestion that we have then two separate articles? One that would have however much from the unassigned fund balance, and then the second one, a separate one from taxation.
No, it's too late for that. But you have the power,
Talked about it.
no, you have the power to do that within the one article, because there's two places to get that money from.
Can we go one step further? We're proposing taking the striping out to also allow us to pave more. So that helps. The state doesn't stripe every year.
no, well, they have to take it every year.
180.
Support 180.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Realizing,
Where's it come from?
Number of what David was asking for in the first place? It's been all over the
Yes,
place.
yes.
250.
Yeah, it was, 247 or something like that, but yeah.
Okay, where did that number come from?
That was a quote, no, that was actual quote.
Did we ever see that quote? No,
I think you got it.
Yeah, I saw
I
it.
never saw it.
No, but he'll put them out to 3 people in the spring, because he'll get a
That
better
just
price.
gives you a ballpark figure, and already he went and got another one from,
Yeah.
I like to see it in place.
I think that's prudent, what we got in the fall after we stopped paying, so we knew how much more. But we had the guys say, so how much for the rest of this and this sketch of March Hill? And what we got at that time was not to exceed numbers, which is what the 250 was built on.
correct.
Nobody knows what the real number will be in May, but it won't be bigger than this for that amount of work. That was the promise from the vendor. And there were 3 of them, and I did see at least one of them. $60 a ton instead of 88, we paid 88.
Yeah, this new one that he got was a lot less.
When was that gotten?
That was just recently. I think
all right. Anyway, let's get back to a
a week
number.
or 2 ago.
Oh,
So
okay.
we were looking at 180, Rock? And some percentage of that from taxation was your proposal?
Do you have an idea, your
80 of it from taxation.
80?
Holy cow.
Yeah, my concern is that I do recognize that people have already paid in, but that's a huge chunk that pretty much guarantees we would not pay at all. Which my concern is that does put us a solid year behind.
Make a suggestion.
How about the 15 you took out?
I might not be the right guy. Yeah, I might not be the right guy to ask, because this is one of those areas that I don't mind it coming out of the fund balance, because it's a huge chunk. So I'd be okay with a 180 and having it come out of fund balance.
Yeah, I support that.
Then you got it.
Okay. Does that work?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Article 10, shall the town of Alstead vote to raise and appropriate? Yep, let's actually move to the next line this time. Article 11, shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to strike the paved roads, 10,000 from unassigned fund balance. You guys are recommending no.
No,
We striked last year, right?
you got roads falling apart, you're striking
I am so on
cracks.
board with that.
I'm sorry.
So we're recommending this go to 0 or
Right,
strike the article?
we've got a mistake in there. I just realized that going back and looking at the email that had been sent out, that should be 0 from us. We recommended zeroing that line out.
Okay. You want that 0 to come from unassigned fund balance?
Both.
Equal split? Okay. All right, so article and
So we'll just take that article out.
remove, okay.
Will we have to renumber all the articles
Don't
out?
worry about it, I'm gonna change them anyway.
Please,
Because I'm gonna put the two fire trucks together.
Okay, now we get back into talking about fire trucks.
No, didn't you do that? Because last year you zeroed out things.
Last year, the voters zeroed it out.
Okay, so article 12, shall the,
That can drop.
what's that?
That can drop. It doesn't need to be 460.
Okay, let me read it first. Shall the town raise and appropriate $460,000 to purchase a combination pumper rescue truck substantially consistent with the specification published 2 November 2015. This is the work of the fire department and the EMSG committee. And we have received bids against that specification. How many? Four. All right. So $460,000.
We're suggesting you drop to 450,
Okay.
380 from the capital reserve, and 70 from fund balance.
So the 450.
450,000.
10,000. Yeah.
And how much
Okay, let me
was
finish
the
reading
fund
this so
balance?
people know where we started.
380, 70.
It started out at sum of 460, 390 to come from capital reserves, and 35 from unassigned fund balance, and $35,000 to be raised through taxation. So the original proposal was a three-way pay for this. The bulk of it coming out of the fire department's capital reserves, a small, say less than 10% coming out from unassigned fund balance, and an additional less than 10% coming out with taxation. That's the starting point. Budget Committee is recommending the 460,000
450.
goes to $450,000. And that's based on looking at the quotes and everything else, I assume, okay? And that the reduction comes from the amount that's coming out of the capital reserve fund, dropping that to $380,000, while leaving the $35,000 coming from
No,
unassigned.
70,000 from fund balance.
The rest of it all coming from fund balance.
70,000 and 0 to be raised through new taxation.
Correct.
I do have one quick question. With the market, I know we're supposed to be invested in safe stuff, but with the market correction we just had, are those numbers correct? I mean,
I haven't
do we
talked
have,
yet.
right, I mean, do we have the to-date numbers? And how we spend the
Actually-
money, in other words, if we write these warrant articles and the money's not in those accounts, then the warrant article fails, correct?
Actually, the way I had it explained to me by Bruce is that they can move money around within the accounts
Okay.
if it fluctuates. So probably you'd get your 380.
I don't think it's any guarantee.
Yeah, I don't know how they can move it from one account.
But what we do have on our, the tool we do have, that we didn't used to have, is time. Less so with a fire truck with a contract and a down payment.
Right.
We don't have to spend the capital reserve warrant article voted amount on a particular date.
Correct.
So if we see the market continuing to do what it's doing these days, we ought to buy that stuff in April. But if the world settles back down, and we're really tight on one capital reserve balance versus one voted warrant article, we have the time to push that towards the end of the fiscal year.
Well, the other thing too is that I think in order to get the biggest discount on one of the trucks, we would have had to put 80% down of it up front. There were a number of pricing schemes that came in. One vendor was a flat price with no discounts for prepay. The three other vendors had discounts that staggered from anywhere from 25 to 80% depending on how much you prepaid. So it's not like it all has to be paid up front.
No, and they're doing that.
But the question that Linda brought up is a valid one. If you know, the sketch that I did had us taking $390,000 out of a fund that the day I looked at it had $396,000. Now maybe that's imprudent, given the volatility of the
It's only
market.
392 the last two times.
So I like the 380 number better, because it's more cautious.
Yeah, that's why I
I'm perfectly willing to take 70,000 of that out of fund balance and not out of taxation.
think it,
But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
I think it greatly increases the chances of us getting a new fire truck.
absolutely.
You okay with me? Okay. Then we'll take the AABC recommendations for $70,000 from fund balance, $380,000 from capital reserve.
And the not to exceed amount on that warrant article is $450,000, not 400.
Yes. All right. Shall the town of Alstead vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to purchase an equipment trailer?
Oh, we were going to do the fire department one back on 6.
Oh, we did kind of skip over that.
Right.
All right, so we're going to go back to page 1, Article 6. And this is, shall we raise and appropriate the sum of $80,000 to be added to the Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund, $50,000 from unassigned fund balance, $30,000 to be raised by taxation. And the AEBC recommendation is $20,000
to cover
all
the
from
tax.
taxation. I'm good with that.
I'll sign off on that.
Yeah.
Oh, would you, no, cards to do this?
Number 6 went to 20 for taxation, correct?
Yes.
All right, can we get back to my trailer?
Yeah.
No, 20.
Article 13, this is $15,000 to purchase a new trailer for the highway department from the capital reserve fund. So how much do they have in there now?
Oh, and the capital reserve fund?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
Well, yeah, it does matter.
We got 166,000 in there, plus or minus, so.
Okay, so why aren't they spending $15,000 out of their capital
And
reserve?
that's what we
That's what we're
proposed.
recommending.
All right, okay. So for Article 13, we're saying don't use unassigned fund balance, use it
Capital reserve.
capital reserves. 15,000, all in favor? Aye.
And I believe the language is
A trailer.
a trailer, not a new trailer.
That we are buying a used one, you cannot buy, it's just used one.
So just,
Yeah, well, it's really make sure we're good on that.
Yeah.
We've been down that.
we know how to do that.
What year trailer?
What
We're
color?
not putting that.
Article 14, shall the town of Alstead vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to repair stone walls in town cemeteries? $5,000 to come from unassigned fund balance.
The budget committee recommended zeroing that line out. There's a mistake in the spreadsheet that I gave you, Joel. And we did ask too that if you were going to leave that in there, that you clarify what cemetery that was going to be done.
It's Slade Cemetery. I think.
But again, we don't want to be specific. Or I don't want to be specific.
Right, and that's what he said he was gonna get up, and Bruce said he was gonna get up and say which cemetery it was.
Hopefully it'd be a moot point,
We did
because
last
again,
week.
we feel that the roads are falling apart, the cemeteries can wait. That perhaps they could figure out a way to use their trust.
They aren't making any money.
Well, I know they're supposed to only use the interest, but then again, they could always see
So,
some funds too.
the
So-
proposal was,
We do
from
have somebody
one
who's
selectman, the
working on
proposal was
money.
$5,000.
Right.
That was the recommendation from the cemetery commissioners. And this selectman said, well, you should take that from fund balance. The budget committee said, nah, we don't think we should spend any money on that.
Correct.
Where are we? Any money that could come from anywhere.
Is there a ongoing increased cost of not fixing up stone walls?
Well, every year we've always either put money into the headstones or
Understand.
some type of maintenance to take care of it.
I think we gotta fix this stone wall. $5,000 is horrible amount of money for that.
Where would you like it to come from, Rock?
Fund balance?
Fund balance.
Okay, and how about you, son?
I'm good with that.
Oh, yeah, there's no fund balance.
So, the select,
Where are we at on that fund balance?
the selectmen are unanimous in their belief that this should be funded at $5,000, and that $5,000 should come from fund balance. And I'll remind you again that the voters can turn this upside down with a simple majority.
All right, Article 15, shall we raise and appropriate $5,000 to repair stone walls at Millet Green? $5,000 from unassigned fund balance.
We concur with that.
But why should we be fixing up Millet Green?
I don't care.
Well, because there's a septic system.
Because the septic system is really,
So I supported that as being funded from fund balance. How about you two guys?
I'm good with that.
That's fine.
Okay. Article 16, shall the town of Alstead vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50 to design, specify, I should point out that that is a typo, $50,000 to design, specify, and permit a replacement for the red listed bridge over Darby Brook on the Drewsville Road. $50,000 coming from unassigned fund balance. You guys, opinion?
We agree with that.
Agree with that?
Power structure, yeah.
Okay.
And let's be clear, that doesn't build a bridge.
Right, this just doesn't.
That just means that the day they close the bridge, we already have the design and the permit and presumably the bids in hand.
Okay.
So instead of waiting 14 months,
And it'll give us a more firm number of what to shoot for, what we need to save for a bridge. Got that wrong.
$50.
And there we go.
All right, so we're in agreement on that one, Article 16, we're done. Article 17, shall the town of Alstead vote to discontinue the town hall capital reserve fund established? This is, the money, cumulative interest to date to be transferred to the municipality's general fund. And that's the correct language?
No.
shouldn't it be new town hall? It's gotta say new town hall, because
That's what we went through last year.
Okay, so it should say new town hall.
And the general fund is correct, isn't it unassigned fund
That's,
balance?
it has to go into the general
Yeah, go
fund.
to the general fund, yeah.
that was where I was going with mine because,
What are you gonna spend it on?
It goes into fund balance the next year, but you have to have it go into the general
We already
fund.
took this out last year,
I know, I
the fund
remember.
balance, so.
okay.
We're just putting the money back in we took out last year.
How much is it?
67,000 or so.
Plus or minus, yeah.
Okay. So that will likely end up, should it pass, it will be a contribution towards next year's unassigned fund balance.
Correct.
Okay. All right, we're good with that, right?
We are.
Article 18, see if the town will vote to increase the optional veterans tax credit pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 72:28, chap .2, from $50 to $300. If adopted by the voters, the modified veterans tax credit will go into effect April 1, 2016. So, is this paid by the town?
Yes.
So,
It's not actually paid, it's discounted. And so we have approximately 50 veterans, so it would be 50 times 250 is the tax allocation.
He said it costs about $16,000
Yeah.
to the town.
yeah.
This is a recommendation of a former selectman who submitted a spreadsheet showing that the county, of all the towns in the county, Alstead was by far the most parsimonious, and that the median discount was $300. So this puts us in the ballpark with what our neighbors are doing, but only just. And I supported it in principle. I'm not married to that particular number, but
I'm okay with that.
It's unanimous then.
Article 19, shall the town of Alstead agree to donate to the Fall Mountain Friendly Meals, Fall Mountain Emergency Food Shelf, a parcel of property on Bragg Lane to build an approximately 50 by 100 foot structure and provide access and parking for approximately 28 vehicles. Voting yes will have zero impact on your tax bill, and this is by petition. So this does not mean that the town builds, this does not mean that we pave the parking lot or anything else. This just means that property that is not being used for anything currently right now could be used by Fall Mountain Friendly Meals and the food shelf.
That's not the way I just think we're giving them the land.
That's what it says.
That's what that,
Donate to.
Right.
Thank you.
the land.
Well, you sounded like it was like, yeah,
You could
we're
borrow.
still borrowing a while back.
the town did buy the land, so it is our tax dollars.
Absolutely.
Yep, you guys bought it. How much?
I think it was about 168, something.
128, I thought. 228.
It was
I go back and look it up.
Was
Yeah.
it paid for it?
No,
Yeah, it was
it's
over,
9 o'clock.
I thought it was between 220 and
Maybe it
240.
was, yeah.
I do don't know for
Unfortunately, we don't get to discuss this because it's a petition article.
Yeah.
And we don't have to take a stand on it as selectmen because it doesn't involve any money.
Right.
Right.
Now, even though it does involve money,
It does.
but it's not raised and appropriate.
Okay.
Now, we can have an opinion on it, and we probably should.
I'm fine with offering an opinion on it, and I would be in favor of it.
I would oppose it.
Why?
What's that?
Acres back there, plenty of land for what, new buildings and parks and a lot of property back there that could be used for quite a few.
This is true, but what, I mean, what else is it gonna be used for?
It's empty lot back there now. Been empty.
Was there ever a site plan on this?
We have our, here's where I kind of come from on this. We want to meet as a welfare, and how much we
Well,
just ballpark paid.
it's almost like the end.
Okay.
4442. Not bad.
I know what we changed welfare.
It's sort of irrelevant, but I think my basic point is this. We spent $16,000, we're budgeting $16,000 in rent for the town. We're budgeting $1,500 in helping with utilities, $4,000 in heat, $500 in auto assistance, ballpark that you budget about $25,000 in welfare assistance, which we're obligated to pay. It's not whether we want to, we are obligated by RSA to do so. The line for food is $400. So, being a fiscally conservative guy, to me, supporting the food shelf has a beneficial impact on my taxation. And that's where I come from on that.
How does it have a benefit to your taxation?
Because we would be paying
We
a
would be
whole
paying a
lot
whole
more
lot
out.
more.
But you,
If we could, if I spend everybody.
you're also given a piece of property that's worth X number of dollars, and we won't get taxes off of that, will we?
Oh, yeah.
Never.
No, we won't.
No. Plus, you're gonna have to have it surveyed. You can't just give it. It's gonna cost tax money.
That's,
I would think it was them that would have to pay it, the way it reads.
Who makes the decision on how much? Because this is very broad.
Yeah.
It says approximately. Approximately means anything. You can, it's interpretation. So who actually decides what piece of it and how much?
I think before any sale were to take place, there would
It's not
have
a
to be,
sale.
well, before any transfer of deed take
Yeah.
place, would there not have to be a survey? Would there not have to be?
Yeah, but who decides what piece that property is given away?
Well, it doesn't really matter now, because this is the weakness and the strength of a petition's warrant
That's
article.
a warrant article.
And that's-
Here's my problem. I'm going to support this in principle, and I'm going to vote in favor of it, and I'm really unhappy that it says donate, because that's not what it said a month ago. and it's not gonna pass. The voters are not gonna put up with it. But I support it in principle.
That's not right.
Sure it is. Because I think ultimately it's what's best for the town.
What's wrong with donate?
I think the town's voters will wish to have maintained control of that building and would have been happy, control of that land and would have been happy to lease it for 99 years.
Absolutely.
It's just an unnecessary mistake, I believe, and I hope I'm wrong about that. Because I do believe that the continued function of the shelf is to the town's advantage overall. And not just fiscally, but culturally. And perhaps even morally, although we're not allowed to talk about that.
Has there been any thought about what the ongoing costs then after that? Because you have the initial cost, then you got the building costs.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not us.
We
is us.
don't have anything to say about this petition warrant article.
Well, not the
But I think those are the questions that are gonna come up, and that's
Right.
why, and I'm with you, Joe, I happen to think that this is a good idea for the town. I think it's just the right thing to do. The issue is they only have a piece of the package. It looks like we're trying to crawl before we can walk, and if this was presented as a total proposal, including all of the ramifications cost-wise, then I think there's a
I think
possibility.
Mary Lou can speak to this, but they have donors lined up that will fund the building and do everything else, provided they get a piece of parcel of land.
But none of that matters tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We simply have to pass this on to the voters with or without our recommendation. We took the bold move and voted 2-1 in favor.
Who decides how much?
But Joe,
We put everybody in the room when we didn't write this thing. We can't take responsibility for it.
But how can you support it? though?
exactly.
Because I believe that,
That's
on balance,
That's foolish.
the existence of the food shelf is to the benefit of this town.
You can agree with the food shelf, you can agree with friendly meals, but if you got something that says, will you give part of your property away, you agree with that?
Remember, you guys were asked to write this, so it is on you.
No, it's not on us.
So here's where I feel, I mean, if I am not skeptical, and if I'm assuming that this will be followed in the general letter, the general intent of what it was, which is to provide parking and to provide an area of 50 by 100 for a structure, approximately, and I'm gonna say that may be 51, it may be 49 by 101 or 102.
500 by 500.
Yeah.
Right, but how can we transfer a deed without that being measured out?
Absolutely, how can you do it in agreement? Because if that group of people, I'm not sure who's gonna decide this, if that group of people is weighed on one side, they could take the entire piece of property.
Who owns?
Did I
Nonsense, absolute fantasy.
Right, so if a sale were to occur,
May I address some of the issues?
I don't think you should. I think we should
Why?
just,
If you go there ignorant with no information, how are you gonna vote good?
I am not gonna defend or
I'm
critique
not
this
asking
article.
you to defend it.
I'm expecting you to stand up and make the
I'm
pitch.
gonna be in the hospital that day.
Well, someone will need to make a convincing pitch for this because I think it's going to fail.
We've chosen somebody.
I think you have another issue to consider too. What happens when the next, and I'm not saying I'm in favor or against, but are you opening Pandora's box when, let's say, the Historical Society, who uses part of this building, says, well, we need some more space too. How about donating the building? You set precedents. You just donate it to somebody else. We want some too.
One of the great things about being a selectman is we're not bound by precedents that didn't come from the legislature. That's why we get 3 new stooges every year, or so it seems.
Should only be one.
I'm hearing you, Mark, loud and clear.
yeah, and I
I'm
don't
not conflicted by this.
And I don't disagree that this is a poorly crafted document. But to the point, the mechanics of it, when a sale occurs, the seller and buyer have to come together to transfer a deed from one to the other.
Who's the seller?
So the seller is the town of Alstead, which will be represented at that point by who? The selectmen?
Right.
You guys.
Exactly.
Not you.
Not me.
It's a meeting you don't have to go to.
Right, so I think that the theory that they could write down 10,000 acres on this and say, but you said, I think that would kind of fall away.
I think your credibility is gonna be hurting though if you put your,
Would you sign a contract with that wording?
Would you like me to retract my position? Man, what I don't want to do, I support the idea of a food shelf. I think this is a flawed article, but I don't want to, I personally don't want to be the guy that tries to hammer a nail into it, because I can't do that. I believe in what they do, I believe in how they do it, even if it's poorly crafted, and to your point, it's not going to pass. I'm very skeptical of that.
Well, I'm torn, because I agree with Lolly. I shouldn't be voting for anything I don't think is done right and done well. But the larger issue for me is the homelessness of that program, which I continue to believe has value for our town. And that's not a situation that I created.
A building that they could go into that's vacant at this
What
point?
about any other town? I mean,
That has nothing to do with this conversation.
If the town owned it, would they subdivide it, survey in a contract, you may have to make an offer. If you're gonna donate something, you have to, I'm gonna donate $100 or I'm gonna donate 50. I'm not bound.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow into that.
That's okay.
Say we're not bound to a certain size.
To a certain size, it's your offer.
We have a family who was from the local area who are in Connecticut, and they have been donors because they care about the local people. And he has expressed that they would like to build a small food shelf in memory of his mother, and he would do that for us. But he's not going to do anything, go ahead with plans or designs or spend any money until he knows we have a little bit of land.
Well, where's all the money for the design and all of that? I think that's
He's
gonna
going
be
to cover all that, but
He
he
will.
doesn't want to do that until he knows we have land.
I think
If we have a place to do it.
Did you change your vote?
Lang did not put it on their warrant because the area that they were considering is wetland. And
Oh, I'm on
it
no.
was a lot to deal with. And they decided it was that Alstead, the land on Bragg Lane was
So what
better.
you're saying, there's no cost to the town other than, and from soup to nuts, there's no cost to the town except for the donation of the property.
Mhm.
And you have that in writing from this guy, that it could be, that's the question you're gonna have at the meeting. And,
Maintenance, heat, electricity, who's
Well,
gonna plow?
the advisory committee with representatives from the towns we've been meeting with thought that the best idea for that was for all the towns to donate, for their donations to be used to pay for the light and the heat and the
Is it the best case scenario that every town would donate?
they do now. They do different things.
So
Charlestown, we'll continue to have our Charlestown site. The town of Charlestown pays $6,000 a year rent for our Charlestown site. Walpole and Ackworth give us generous donations to both organizations for food. Alstead used to do that before we started using Bragg Lane. Langdon donated a few thousand every year before we started using the Baker building. And what we do with Walpole and Ackworth donates every year to both. We buy food with their money.
So
So all the towns do participate now.
Yeah, and for those of you who may not be familiar, there's been an advisory committee, like you said, put together from people from all the different towns to look at all these issues that have been a concern to a whole lot of people.
Is there a rep from Alstead on that committee?
But we have
A lot
board
of people,
members,
yeah.
Susan Esslinger, Mary Larson, Robert Gowdy. They come to every meeting.
I am
And they're
sensing
taxpayers in
an
Alstead.
interest in adjournment.
If I may, quick update on where we're at with hiring our new police officer?
No clue.
Okay. And, I would just like it noted that, the budget committee, that you didn't want any input from, hearing on anything. I think there are about 8 articles there that you went with our recommendations when you changed all your numbers. So keep that in mind, just remind us that we're just advisory,
Well, I think,
that you seem to like our advice.
Some of it was pretty good.
Yeah, you guys did an excellent job, really.
Anything else?
Yeah, how did it end
What was
up?
that last vote?
You guys voting on it, or do you even have to vote?
I said no, they abstained.
I was full, believe me.
What's
My
that
point
gonna
is that
do?
the fact that we
It's
could come to that
conditional, it has to
consensus,
be
why
on.
not use it to the
Yeah,
best of your
I thought Linda said that nothing has to be on.
That petition article has to be on the warrant.
No, I know
You
that.
don't have to,
I mean, I don't care.
if you don't have to,
That's what I'm just saying.
We don't have to give our opinion. I said no.
You want to give your opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I just want to get that clear in my head, what was, okay.
If it had, we're gonna have a
Sorry.
hard time money getting that committee together next year.
Okay, we'll be all right.
all right.